This is Nelson.
Nelson.
And Nelson.
We are Nelson, and we're going to be working today on a 2006 Equinox.
We need to replace the heater core.
One of the first things you'll be wanting to do is draining as much of the antifreeze out of the system as you can. It won't actually make it so that no antifreeze is over in the heater core, but it will reduce the amount that will come running out whenever you start opening that up and getting inside of that system. Normally, when you replace a heater core, you're going to have to remove the entire dashboard, most of the front console, even the steering wheel. But there is a shortcut that can be done by going in through this panel here, and you don't have to remove quite so many things. You do have to do a special thing with the heater core, but you will not have to be pulling the entire dashboard apart. To make it easier to work in here and get at everything underneath of there, you should first pull the front seat here, the driver's seat, out of the vehicle. You have to do that by removing 2 bolts that are in the back, and you'll be able to pull it out then. There are 2 bolts here in the back that hold the seat down in place. They're 15mm heads, and you got to remove both of those, and then you'll be able to pull the seat out. It's only held by 2 bolts. Once those 2 bolts are out, you simply rock the seat forward like so to lift it up, and then you pull it back towards the back of the vehicle, and it'll unhook itself from the front where it's hooked into the floor. Okay, we want to get this panel here, which is under the steering wheel. We need to pull that out. There's 2 screws. There's one inside this recess hole here that you can see at the bottom, and then there's another one over here. After that, it just pulls right off. The next thing you're going to want to do is pull up this whole center console assembly here. It's not held in place by screws, so you can simply pry it up and pop it out of here by lifting up on it and then pulling back. This panel was held in place by these little squeezy things, so you can just pop them out and not be afraid of breaking anything because they're just held in by that. There's no screws holding it. Okay, the next thing that has to come off is this panel, which is on the side of the console. There are 2 screws on the sides of it, and there's 2 screws here in the front that you need to get out so that this thing will come off of there. In order to remove the gas pedal, there are 3 bolts from the back of this bracket, and it takes a 10mm wrench to get up in there and get a hold of those, and then you can pull the gas pedal out of the way so that you can pull the heater core out of this region. Okay, now that we got the gas pedal out of the way, this cover that you can see here is covering over the end of the heater core, and the tubes are running out this way through the firewall up here. So we've got to remove 1, 2, and it looks like just 3 screws, and we'll find out after we take it off whether if it is just 3, but it is a 1/4-inch socket, and this will uncover the heater core for us. So I will get started on removing those. Okay, I've got all the screws out now. Now I can pull this cover off, and I think, yep, it's loose, but it's not coming easy. I'm going to have to, there you can see the tube from the heater core coming that way, going in through the firewall. And I'm going to have to put the phone down so Okay, this is the tool we'll be using to cut the lines going into the heater core so that we can pull it out. Otherwise, you have to pull it out of the firewall like we explained earlier, and you'll have to physically remove all of that other stuff, which is a huge job. But this will cut right through them, and we'll be able to cut them off pretty quickly. Okay, now before you start cutting on those tubes, you need to be aware that there is still some residual antifreeze in them. And when you cut through them, they're going to leak. So you need to have some kind of a cup to catch the antifreeze that'll flow out of there. And if you want to protect the carpet against anything that you drop, you need to put down some plastic of some kind. This is a plastic bag that will keep it from dripping into the carpet. You're probably going to want to clean the carpet anyway to some extent because it's going to get nasty. Regardless of how hard you try, you often always leave some that gets onto it. So here I'm going to start cutting these tubes, and I'll use this cutter thing. Here you can see the heater core in its place where we've already cut the lines going through the firewall. Now when we go to install the new one, we'll have to cut the lines on it and use some heater hose to clamp them and cover them over, but we'll probably cut them back further into this region so that we get a lot of, a nice straight region to connect them, to link them together with. But this now can be pulled out from here, and we have to try to maneuver it past this bracket where the brake pedal is hung from. And we'll see if we can get that by without having to remove the whole bracket and brake pedal assembly.
Ah! Don't want to go, do you? Ah!
Well, we were able to get the heater core out past that bracket, but unfortunately, as you can see, we bent it. So I have to say we will recommend removing the bracket before you pull the heater core out, or it'll wind up in this shape. Now, obviously, we have to remove that bracket in order to put the new one in, or the new one will be bent into this shape as well.
Ah! 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 Ah!
Well, we did manage to finally get the bracket out, as you can see here, but it was a real struggle. Okay, now here's the new heater core, and we have to decide where we're going to cut these tubes off and match the cutoff in the vehicle. Now this is the best area here because it's straight. What we're going to do is cut them off and then match the same cuts in the vehicle. We're going to slip some of this hose over it and then pull it back and cover over the gap and clamp it. So we have to make that decision. We have to have enough space here so that we can slide it on, or over here to slide it on and then slide it back. Okay, since we are going to want to double clamp this, just to ensure that it doesn't leak again, it's a lot of work to get in there, we're going to put 2 hose clamps on each side. But that means we're going to need about 1 inch of hose to be down here overlapping this. So we don't want to cut this, we want to cut this off about 1 inch from where the bend is. And that should give us plenty on the other side, inside of the car, to slide the hose up on it and then be able to pull it back down over this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be slipping these pieces of heater hose over this end, and then when we get it into place, we'll slide them down and cover over the separation between the 2 hoses, and we'll put 2 hose clamps on either side of it, and in that way we'll be able to ensure that it won't leak. After that, of course, we'll test it just to make sure it doesn't leak. Okay, now what I've done is I've slipped the new heater core into here so we can see where we need to cut off these tubes. It would appear that they are slightly bent because they're not quite aligned properly, but that's close enough. We'll be able to get a measurement at least, and I'll mark these where they need to be cut so as to more or less line up with the new one. Because of the clamps and hoses, we won't be able to put this cover back on where it holds onto the heater core. We need to cut this off, so we're going to slice this off here, and that'll leave those exposed, but it'll provide that support to keep the heater core in place. Okay, now here I've got we cut the cover off and I've put it into place, got 2 screws in it, and there you can see the hose clamps still sticking out from the other side of it. They won't be visible once all the paneling is back in, but you can see that I managed to get the cover back on top of that so that the heater core will not be able to slide out of its place. Well, the next thing we need to do is put the brake pedal assembly and bracket back in. We're going to have to pry up that flange that's under there because these things are recessed, so we have to pry it up past there, get this into place, and then let that sit back on top of it. So we'll have to get under there and manipulate all of that.
Die, dumb thing! Get up! Ah! What the heck? Ah!
Okay, well, we managed to get the brake pedal bracket into place, and the brake pedal, we got to now plug in the electrical connections and get her all tightened down, and that will be in place. Now that we've got the gas pedal and the brake pedal back in place, we should be able to get her started and see if there are any leaks coming out around the tubing or the heater hose that we put in there over the tubing. Okay, well, I've got the engine started. She's running, so if there's going to be a leak, we should be seeing it coming down from here. So we'll let her go for just a little bit, and if we see no leaks, we'll proceed with putting back together all of the panels and stuff, and we should have the job done then. Well, we finished it. It runs, it drives, and we have heat, and it's not leaking. We made it.